Oh yeah. Hey, what's going on, everybody? I cut that thing cold right there, didn't I? Welcome back to Groovy Thursdays. I am Nick DiVirgilio, and I am so glad you're here because it's been a while since we've had a little talk, since we've talked drums. And I'm glad to be back in this chair, and I'm excited to talk about this week's groove. We are at groove number, gosh, I forgot. Hold on. I got to look again. It's 58. Man, oh man. This has been going on for a while now, and it's just so much fun because drums are cool, right? We love drums, and we're going to talk some drums here, some great drumming here this week. We're going to celebrate the drummers of Mr. Jeff Beck. Now, not all of Jeff Beck's career. We're just going from the 60s up to 1980. Then I'm going to do another video later where I celebrate the drummers from 80 up to today. Now, we recently lost Jeff Beck, which is sad. So many of the greats are going these days, and what an iconic guitar player, just the top level of musicianship. And he always had, from the very beginning of his career all the way up till just his last days, he always surrounded himself with the best musicians on the planet. His bands were fantastic all the time, from early on till now. So just because he's so good, everybody wants to play with him, right? Everybody wanted to play with him, I should say. And it's great for us as music fans that we got so much great music out of Jeff Beck and his musician friends. So we're going to celebrate these early drummers. We have some great ones to talk about. And I just picked a groove from each of these first albums. First we're going to talk about is the very first Jeff Beck record, I guess Jeff Beck Group record, called Truth. Now, what a band. One of my favorite things about these first couple of records we're going to talk about is early young Rod Stewart as the vocalist. I know that's not drumming, but man, Rod Stewart sounded so good. Oh, well, he was such a great rock singer his whole career, but man, these early records, he could sing so well. I love to sing. You know I love to sing, so he was awesome. The drummer on this record, oh wait, yeah, I got my glasses on. I need to look at my notes over here, and I need to see. So, the drummer on this record, Micky Waller. Micky played in all kinds of bands back in the late 60s, John Mayall's Blues Breakers, and all kinds of other projects that were over in the UK, and was really kind of one of the founding members of the Jeff Beck Group with Jeff Beck, right? What a band. Micky Waller, Ron Wood, Jeff Beck, and Rod Stewart. I mean, it was a great rock and roll band. Had a great sound, and Micky's drumming, to my ear, had a thing that was similar to a lot of other drummers back in that day. His drumming had a sound of it had a little Mitch Mitchell influence to me, a little Keith Moon, a little Ginger Baker, a little Carmine Appice. You know, all those guys had a thing back in those days. Big, wide open drums and just great, loud rock and roll grooves. The second groove I played comes from the song Spanish Boots from the Jeff Beck Group record Beckola. Another great late 60s rock and roll record, young Rod Stewart, his voice. Man, I'd love to be able to sing like that. Really good stuff. Now, it's basically the same band, except this time the drummer is Tony Newman. Another great English drummer, played with David Bowie, John Prine, all kinds of players, and had a nice long career, but he's on this record. And again, a great rock and roll drum sound. Sound like big drums, probably like a 26-inch kick drum or something. Big, wide open toms, and just a really cool bluesy feel to this track. Oh, the recording! It's just in your face. Oh, and a little bow. Man, I really encourage you, if you haven't dove into these early Jeff Beck records or maybe never heard them at all before, it's a great listen, a killer study, really lots of stuff to learn from not just the drumming, but obviously the singing. I'm a fan, right? The guitar playing, of course, the bass playing, Ron Wood on bass, just big, boomy, probably had a big old SVT or two of them or something, Fender bass, just rocking it. Really good stuff. I even gave the horns. It is really good stuff. The third groove in this celebration of Jeff Beck drummers is from the record Rough and Ready from the Jeff Beck Group, the song Got the Feeling, and the drummer, Cozy Powell. What an incredible drummer Cozy Powell was. He was young and on fire back in these days, and then went on to a really long career playing with so many great bands. Rainbow, Michael Schenker, Robert Plant, Brian May, Whitesnake, Emerson, Lake, and Powell. Dude did a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, he passed away way too early. He died in a car crash, right? Yeah, Died in a car crash in his Saab 9000. I remember that back in the 90s. It was sad because I was a fan of his drumming. I never got the chance to meet him. Would have been cool because I listened to a lot of records that Cozy Powell played drums on. And he had great technical facility, killer sound, and just really good groove. Oh my gosh. Even though he rocked really hard, played in lots of kind of hard rock bands, his groove was very slinky and saucy and all kinds of good stuff. Check out the front of this tune. Oh, yeah. Oh, that is funky. Oh, man, it's so good. If you listen closely, you can hear the double bass going on underneath it. Now, back in those days, the sound of the bass drums, they were probably playing big bass drums, maybe 26, 24s or something like that, and they were pillowy sounding. They weren't really snappy like they are today, which is the typical sound of today's kick drum sound. Back then, they definitely had a more pillowy texture to the sound, so you got to listen in a little bit more, but it just sat in the mix of the whole thing. And my gosh, with Jeff Beck's just waka chaka waka chaka waka and that groove, super cool. The next groove is yet another Cozy Powell groove because he did 2 records in a row with the Jeff Beck Group. This next record was just called the Jeff Beck Group, and the song is Ice Cream Cakes. Now what's cool about this is that it starts with the drums, which is great. The drums sound really cool. It's a very unique pattern. And then, gosh, when the bass comes in, the bass is played by Clive Chaman. I hope I'm saying his last name correctly, Chaman or Chaman. But when that sound of the bass comes in, just saturated and distorted and just right in your face, with that drum groove, it is early rock and roll, early 70s rock and roll, just perfection. It's so cool. Let's listen to the beginning of this tune. Oh, the drums sound amazing. Oh man, that's so good. Oh, and the organ and stuff. It sounds like that time. It sounds like that era for sure, but it just has some balls to it that is so great, so fun to hear. I encourage you to check out all this early stuff. The next groove is from one of the classic Jeff Beck records, probably one of his most classic, or at least up there in the top 2 or 3 for sure, Blow by Blow. The song is You Know What I Mean, and the drumming of Richard Bailey. What an iconic killer player. This dude was playing with the great Bob Marley when he was 16 years old. He recorded this record, Blow by Blow, with Jeff Beck when he was 18 years old. So he was young and just had the grit and the vim and vigor and all of those things of a young kid playing with these incredible musicians all around him, and his drumming was just, stupid good. Listen to the pocket here on this particular track. It's funky. The sound of the drums have definitely changed now when we get to this record. Dry, sounding more like the mid-70s, right? This record came out in 1975. So at this time, you had bands like Steely Dan and other things where the drum sound was getting tighter. They weren't as open and as ringy as the early 70s and late 60s. Probably recorded in smaller rooms, and just they wanted that kind of sound, and boy, they got it in a great way. So Richard Bailey's drumming is funky, great pocket, and then just super cool to study. You got to check it out. And he played with Bob Marley as a young kid. I mean, come on, that's really amazing. Check the beginning of this tune out. Oh. What a cool thing. Shuka, duga. Simple, but those offbeats are really, those 16th notes are really cool. And then this. Okay, I got to point out that drum fill going into the groove, because the way I did it in the demo earlier was okay, kind of close, but not quite like this. But just listen how simple this fill is and just how beautiful it is in its simplicity. Where we at? gat, goom, stackat. That's all it is. Boom, goom, stack, goom, stackat. Check it out one more time. Let me go back just a couple of seconds, because this is great. Here we go. You can hear the tom ring out before he hits the next drum. That kind of stuff is so cool. Now let's get on to the last groove in our celebration of Jeff Beck drummers. It's quite different than what we just studied. The drummer is Narada Michael Walden. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure there was anybody in the 70s. He's still an amazing musician to this day, of course. And he went on to a career that just exploded, doing all kinds of things. Kind of totally the opposite of the drumming you're going to hear in just a second here, and what I tried to play in my demo. On fire. He was a fusion monster back then, you know, playing that kind of Mahavishnu style, just free, powerful, just rocking drumming. Man, he did it in such a beautiful way. The record Narada played on is Wired. Again, one of Jeff's top five records that he's ever did. You know, and it's a who's who on this record as well. Jan Hammer's on this record. Ed Green plays on a song. But, Jeff Emmerich mixed this record. And it sounds amazing. It sounds like that time. The drums are in your face, especially in this particular tune, Lead Boots, right? The drums are compressed. You hear the pumping. You could feel the pumping come off the 24-inch tape. And what's great about this tune, they basically had the machine off, or at least I think that's how they did it. The 24-track tape machine was off, or they held the tape stopped, and then they let it go so it started spinning again, and that's how the song starts. But just listen to how the sound of the drums, the kick drum, it's so compressed, and then this groove is amazing. Check it out. Oh. It really gets me wired. Like the title of the record. That particular tune and that kind of music, it's just had so much energy to it, right? And man, the drumming is just on fire. So it's a great study. All of these drummers in Jeff Beck's early career were just really great. All had their own flavor, their own style, which is, what else can you say? They're all separate people, so they have to have their own style and feel. But it's great to listen to the change in sound and vibe and feel of Jeff Beck's records. It was more rock and roll, late 60s rock and roll, kind of classic style in the 60s, got a little funky in the early 70s, and then just a little more fusion-y in the middle. Oh my gosh. Then he went on later on into the 80s and did all kinds of other stuff with tons of other great drummers that we're going to get to in my next celebration of Jeff Beck drummers. That'll be the second video. For now, I really encourage you to go to wherever you listen to music and dive into Jeff Beck's catalog. You'll be glad you did if you've never done it before, because the musicianship all around is just top-notch. And if you play drums, you'll get so much valuable listening and education by checking out Jeff Beck's drummers. One more time, let's go through the list. Micky Waller, Tony Newman, Cozy Powell, Richard Bailey, and Narada Michael Walden. I'll leave all the names in the description so you can check those out too. You can find them on Wikipedia and all the different places to kind of learn more about these guys if you don't know who they are. But I encourage you to check them all out. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'm so glad we got to talk again and hang out and just geek out on drums, right? I hope you dug it. If you like what's going on here at Groovy Thursdays, I ask that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with all your friends, send me comments and suggestions for future grooves. There's going to be more coming. I really appreciate you being here with me. Take care, everybody. Cheers.